Adrian's childhood was grounded in love and stability, thanks to his adoptive parents. They had always been honest with him about his adoption, and that transparency helped him grow up with a strong sense of identity and self-worth. He had been adopted within months of his birth. As a child, Adrian was a joy to be around, friendly, kind, and effortlessly warm. He loved spending time with his friends, and his relaxed temperament made him easy to get along with. He wasn't one to pick fights or cause trouble. Adrian never felt different from his peers. Being adopted was simply part of who he was. He had a loving home and a supportive circle of friends, and to him, that was everything. He was proud of his adoption and never hesitated to share it with those who asked. When Adrian was 13, his parents adopted twin sisters, and their quiet household suddenly pulsed with new energy and noise. Going from an only child to an older brother was a major shift, but Adrian welcomed it without hesitation. The twins were just 3 years old when they joined the family. From the start, Adrian was captivated. He quickly became their protector, storyteller, and playmate. Patient and kind, he made sure they felt included and safe. As the years passed, their bond deepened. Adrian helped with homework, soothed scraped knees, and offered hugs when the world felt too big. The girls adored him, and he took that responsibility seriously. They looked up to him, and he worked hard to be worthy of that admiration. Despite the age gap, their relationship was marked by warmth and trust. They built memories on family vacations, celebrated traditions together, and shared the quiet joys of growing up in the same home. Through it all, Adrian remained a steady presence, a devoted brother who would do anything for his sisters. Until one day, the rhythm of their lives was shattered by tragedy. It was supposed to be just another family drive, Adrian, his father, and the twins. But on the highway, a car slammed into the left side of their vehicle. The world flipped. The car spun violently, flipping through 2 terrifying vertical rolls before crashing to a stop off the freeway. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Adrian's father was slumped in the front seat, blood trickling from a deep gash on the side of his head. He wasn't moving. His legs twitched faintly, but it seemed more like a reflex than anything conscious. The twins sat strapped in their safety seats in the back, their bodies miraculously unharmed. But their cries pierced the chaos, shaky, panicked, too young to understand anything except fear. Then came the sirens. The shrill sound sliced through the air, and within moments, firefighters arrived. Their movements were practiced and fast, pulling the family from the twisted frame of the car, laying them onto stretchers, securing them into ambulances. Adrian barely noticed the hands on him. Somewhere between the flashing lights and the oxygen mask pressed to his face, reality began to blur. The blow Adrian's father had received to the head was severe, and his life now hung in the balance. After being rushed to the hospital, doctors quickly determined he needed a surgery to remove a blood clot pressing dangerously against his brain. Adrian had been examined and released. He hadn't sustained any serious injuries, just dizziness from the crash. But he didn't care about himself. He only wanted to find his sisters and see his father. He left the exam room and made his way to the reception desk. The woman behind the counter gave him a sympathetic nod and pointed him toward a pediatric observation room. Inside, the twins sat curled together on a gurney, their small forms hunched in on each other. Their cheeks were streaked with dried tears, and their hands were clasped so tightly it looked painful. They did not speak. They just clung to each other like the world might vanish if they let go. Beside them sat a nurse, speaking in a low, steady voice. Adrian couldn't hear the words, but whatever she was saying seemed to help. The girls had stopped crying. Their shoulders had loosened, just slightly. A pang of gratitude caught in his chest. In the middle of all this chaos, someone had offered comfort when he hadn't been able to. Adrian stepped inside. He lowered himself onto the edge of the gurney and gently wrapped his arms around his sisters. Their small bodies trembled against him, curls brushing his chin as they leaned in. They didn't ask questions. He was only a teenager. But right now, he was the adult in the room. Then a doctor appeared. His expression was grave but composed. He explained that Adrian's father had made it through the initial care, but the damage was serious. They had managed to stabilize him for now. But the real concern lay in what came next. "There's a chance he may not wake," the doctor said gently. "And if he does, the extent of brain damage is still unknown." Adrian nodded stiffly, swallowing hard. He returned to his sisters, whose wide eyes searched his face for news. He didn't have the heart to tell them everything, so he just hugged them again, arms wrapped around their trembling frames. That's when one of the twins winced. "Adrian!" "My arm hurts," she whispered. He pulled back gently to check, and his heart lurched. A cut ran down her right forearm, hidden until now by the sleeve of her shirt. He stood quickly and made his way to the reception desk, his voice calm but urgent. "My sister's bleeding. Can someone please take a look at her?" The woman behind the desk offered a sympathetic frown. "I'm sorry. All doctors are currently attending to critical cases. We'll get to her as soon as we can." He walked back to the girls, knelt beside them, and carefully pulled his sister's arm into his lap. A crumpled paper cup lay by her shoe, soaking up a thin puddle of spilled juice. The sugary scent clashed with the antiseptic in the air. The moment stretched long. The sterile light of the room buzzed faintly overhead. His sister leaned her head against his shoulder, her breathing quick and uneven. His other sister curled against his side, quiet and watching. Adrian's mind raced. What if the bleeding didn't stop? What if she went into shock? What if their father didn't wake up? He didn't know what would happen next. But he knew this. They had each other. And for now, he would hold on for all three of them. As Adrian and his sisters waited anxiously in the pediatric room, a doctor emerged walking in the hallway. Adrian stood up quickly and approached him. "Doctor, please," he said, his voice urgent. "One of my sisters has a cut on her arm. She hasn't been seen yet, and I'm worried there might be internal injuries." The doctor glanced briefly toward the girls but didn't stop. His face remained unreadable as he walked past Adrian toward the reception desk. Adrian followed. "We were just in a car crash. She needs to be checked out." The doctor gave a tired sigh. "There are pressing matters that require my immediate attention. Please be patient." He grabbed a folder from the reception counter and turned away, heading down the corridor. Frustrated, but unwilling to give up, Adrian followed. The doctor entered a small, unused examination room, one that had been closed off due to technical issues. The moment Adrian stepped inside, the air hit him like a wall, hot, humid, and stifling. The temperature was at least 10 degrees higher than the rest of the hospital. Sweat trickled down his neck as he glanced around. The room was poorly lit and cluttered with old medical equipment. Most of it was dusty, broken, or long since outdated. The walls were stained with time, their paint faded into a lifeless orange hue that echoed the room's decay. The sharp tang of antiseptic barely masked the underlying odor of mildew. A shiver crawled up Adrian's spine. The air pressed against his skin, thick, weighty, and strangely alert, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The doctor turned, startled. "You shouldn't be in here," he said, his tone clipped but not cruel, more tired than angry. Adrian stepped forward. "My sister's bleeding," he said. "We were in a crash. She hasn't been checked. I'm not leaving until someone sees her." The doctor's shoulders sagged slightly, and he looked past Adrian, as if calculating something. "We've got a pediatric head trauma and 2 cardiac codes down the hall," he muttered, half to himself. "I don't even have a working vitals monitor in this room." He sighed and finally met Adrian's eyes. "I'm sorry. I know you're worried. But I can't help you right now. Not safely. You have to wait." And then, something in Adrian snapped. His heartbeat surged. A tingling wave climbed his spine, then bloomed across his shoulders like lightning beneath his skin. A sudden surge of energy flooded Adrian's body. His vision pulsed. The hairs on his arms rose. Without thinking, without touching anything, he released it. And a shockwave burst outward, knocking the doctor off his feet. The man flew back, slamming into a cabinet. The wooden floor softened the fall, but not enough to stop the gash that opened on his forehead. Blood trickled down the ochre-stained wall behind him. Adrian stared at the fallen doctor, his chest heaving. He took a step back. His pulse roared in his ears. That wasn't normal. It wasn't adrenaline. It wasn't anything he could explain. He looked down at his own hands, shaking, electric with memory. The overhead light flickered once, humming louder, like the room itself had felt it too. They felt hot, like they still remembered what they'd done. But he hadn't touched the doctor, hadn't even raised his voice. Something had come out of him. His thoughts twisted. What if I'd hurt him worse? What if someone had seen? He wanted to run, but more than that, he wanted to undo whatever had just happened. But part of him, a small, quiet part, wasn't just afraid. It was awake. Was this the real him? Something dormant that had just cracked the surface? Or was it something foreign? Something that didn't belong? The doctor groaned, slowly sitting up, eyes wide with confusion and fear. But Adrian didn't wait. Terrified, he ran back down the hall toward the pediatric room. His sisters were still there, clinging to each other, wide-eyed. Adrian sat beside them, trying to collect himself. He couldn't explain what had just happened. All he knew was that it felt like the pressure of his helplessness had erupted outward, and something inside him had responded. Several tense minutes passed before the doctor reappeared, this time with a second physician by his side. A thin line of gauze crossed his brow where the cut had bled. His expression was tight, wary, but changed. No anger, just wariness, and maybe something closer to understanding. "We'd like to examine your sisters now," the second doctor said gently. The doctor said nothing, but Adrian saw it, the way he avoided eye contact. He wasn't angry. He was scared, or maybe curious. Adrian wasn't sure which was worse. He stood without a word, jaw tight, and led them to the consultation room. The exam was thorough but efficient. The news was good. His sisters had sustained only minor injuries. A cut that would need a few stitches and some bruises. No internal bleeding, no broken bones. Adrian exhaled, long and slow. Relief flooded through him. That night, Adrian brought his sisters home. His mother stayed behind at the hospital, keeping vigil beside his father's motionless body. The apartment felt hollow, too quiet, too still. The air hung heavy with questions no one could answer. Adrian tucked the girls into bed, brushing curls from their foreheads and whispering that everything would be okay. But he didn't believe it. Not yet. He drifted into his room and stood before the easel, not knowing what else to do. The silence pressed in. His hands still trembled from what had happened in that broken hospital room. He picked up the brush, then let go. And the brush didn't fall. It floated. Guided by a force he didn't understand, it began to move. Stroke by stroke, a sleek fighter plane emerged on the canvas. Razor-edged wings, a sharp nose, powerful thrusters. The image felt both foreign and deeply familiar. And just like that, he knew. Adrian stared at the painting, his heart pounding in rhythm with the brush's last stroke. The airplane seemed alive, mid-flight, caught in motion. It wasn't just art, it was a sign. His future belonged in the sky. He would become a pilot, not just to escape, but to protect, to master the gift he didn't yet understand. Adrian stood back from the canvas and whispered, "I'll fly. For him. For them." If he couldn't save his father, maybe he could protect someone else's.